they never had to go through anything with respect to Congress. They considered it to be totally unconstitutional.
Joining us now, Elise Labott, host of Cosmopolitics on Substack, such a good name, and Catherine Thompson, Senior Fellow in Defense and Foreign Policy at the Cato Institute and former senior Trump administration official at the Pentagon under Pete Hegseth. Thank you both for joining us. Catherine, I feel like you're a unicorn. We have been wanting to see and talk to someone who had worked under...
I was chatting her up in the makeup. I'm like,
there will be a Cosmopolitics, I assume, with Catherine involved.
Yes, absolutely.
You worked with Pete Hegseth, under Pete Hegseth, in this Defense Department. The Atlantic is reporting that Vance is privately questioning whether or not the Pentagon is giving him information. In closed-door meetings, J.D. Vance has repeatedly questioned the Defense Department's depiction of the war in Iran and whether the Pentagon has understated what appears to be the drastic depletion of U.S. missile stockpiles. You have the Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, weeks ago saying, in reporting, being concerned, apparently, that the White House, the administration, was giving the president a more rosy view of what's going on there. When you were at the Defense Department, did you get any indication that it is not safe, or be careful with giving President Trump bad news or the true view of hostilities?
So I worked in the policy shop, and in my remit, right, like, you know, stockpile consideration, readiness considerations, trade-offs with other theaters. I mean, this is the bread and butter of what policy does, and in particular in the development of the defense strategy. And so that's kind of the impetus or the reason that we did a more prioritized national defense strategy, which is definitely a diversion or something that's different than, you know, defense strategies that we've seen even from Trump 1 and Biden. And so, I mean, readiness and these considerations that you just outlined, you know, coming from the vice president as well, like, these have always been considerations for any conflict, right? Like, regardless of the adversary. And they're, you know, particularly more acute now given the drawdown of stocks to arm Ukraine. I mean, that was sort of a situation that sort of landed in the Trump administration's lap when they came in. And it's something that we have to grapple with because, you know, we are subject to trade-offs and we are subject to scarcity. I think that's something that maybe the U.S. isn't as comfortable admitting all of the time.
Yes,
but
terrifying.
I think we have to. Yeah. Especially with China on the rise, you know? I mean, that's a consideration. And so, but certainly, right, like, regardless of whether it's China or Iran, readiness and the implications to our munitions is like a critical component of the conversation that seems to have been, I mean, it's definitely been reported by the media, but maybe it's been missing from other segments, including Capitol Hill.
So are our stockpiles being depleted at an alarming rate? Because reading the stories, the concerns are being expressed, but when I see concerns being expressed, the skeptic in me says, oh, hell, it's actually worse than what's being reported.
No, a totally fair, reaction to have. I think based on, a lot of this is behind the classified curtain, but from publicly reported numbers based on, production reports from the defense primes, I think it was the Royal United Services Institute and then CSIS here that most recently put out some reporting and some projects on the state of our stockpiles. And if you look at some of our most exquisite munitions that we need, primarily, we need them in the Indo-Pacific, but right now in the conflict with Iran, they are what is essentially defending us in the Gulf, in our bases in the Gulf, Patriot, THAAD interceptors. I mean, the numbers that they've put out publicly in these reports, if true, and if it reflect what's actually, inside the building, I would certainly be concerned about our ability to do, anything, to continue to, prosecute this campaign, but then also, if Taiwan got hot tomorrow, I think that'd be a real challenge for us.
Well, that's something that's probably inevitably going to come up in the conversations between President Xi and Trump in the next 2 weeks if that visit to China is still on the schedule. But Elise, I want to turn to some of the breaking news that we got last night, which is that Iran had submitted a 14-point response to the U.S. proposal to end the war that President Trump went on to promptly dismiss. But here are some of the demands that were listed by the Iranian outlets, which includes guarantees against future military aggression, the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Iran's periphery, an end to the naval blockade, the release of frozen Iranian assets, the payment of reparations, the lifting of sanctions, an end to the fighting in Lebanon, and a new mechanism governing the Strait of Hormuz. But noticeably missing from that list is obviously the central issue, the biggest point of contention that has long been the issue here, which is the enrichment of uranium, Iran's ability to have access to a nuclear weapon. Give us a status update on what you make.
Essentially, pretty much the proposal that's been floating around for some time. The thing that's new right now is that the Iranians want to separate the nuclear negotiations from the Strait of Hormuz negotiations. They want to first, let's figure out the Strait of Hormuz. Let's get this all straightened out. You end your naval blockade. We'll open the Strait of Hormuz. And then we can negotiate on the nuclear program. So they're saying, we'll give you a timeline for negotiations on the nuclear program. We remember that this problem with the Strait of Hormuz wasn't there before the war. But now this is, for Iran right now, obviously the nuclear has, been the one that everybody's focused on. But